Hello and welcome, and we're here at Holistic Investments, and I'm your host, Konstantin Kogan, and I'm delighted to have an amazing guest today, Anthony Scaramucci, who's a founder and managing partner at SkyBridge Capital, and also founder and chairman at Salt. Hi, Anthony.
So great to be on with you. I love your background and I apologize for mine, but it's great to be on with you, Constant.
It's amazing. I'm really honored to be talking to you. You know, we met multiple times. I was honored to be at Salt. I think it's one of the best conferences out there, like, in the financial world. And overall, I'm really excited to deep dive into your journey. Traditionally, just like as a legal and disclaimer that this content is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other materials legal, tax, investment, financial, or any other advice. Now we can talk about literally everything, right? But I want to start with your early career. Literally, you have like stunning, like really exciting story like that can inspire a lot of people. So can you share some of the insight about your early career and what led you to finance and politics?
Well, first of all, it's a pleasure, and that's very flattering. Thank you for having me on. So, I have an accidental story. I have an undeserved life. Frankly, I've been very lucky in my life, and I'm very grateful for that luck. You talk about being holistic on your podcast, so I do believe in karma. I do believe in good energy, and I do believe that you have to give your people around you a lot of love and attention, and you have to do non-linear things in life. And so this is a non-linear thing for me because you and I don't know each other. You reached out to me, and I said, "No problem, happy to do this." Because if it creates some goodwill, then that's positive energy in the universe. So think about it holistically. I think I've been a direct beneficiary of that. So I got fired from my first job. I was a uh, Goldman Sachs associate. I got hired on August 14th, 1989, fired February 1st, 1991. So I spent 18 months in that job. I was terrible at that job. I'm talking about a real job. I mean, I had a paper out. I had worked in a motorcycle shop for my uncle. I stamped jars in a store
Mhm.
for Mr. Campanelli. I was a sort of a shopkeeper aide, if you will. But my real first job was I was a graduate from Harvard Law School, got hired to Goldman Sachs, was fired from Goldman Sachs. So let's start there. Lesson number one is don't take the job that you think is going to impress your friends, or don't take the job that you think is a cool job. You sort of have to take the job that you're going to be good at or you're passionate about. And so I was incredibly insecure at that time in my life. I was 25 years old, had no money, wanted to make a lot of money. And so I took the job that I thought was going to make me the most money and make me look the coolest to my friends. And I absolutely stunk at that job and I got fired. And so now I'm out on the street looking for a job. And then luck would have it. They had other jobs at Goldman Sachs. I got placed into another job. And so, big lesson from that story is you're getting fired, be nice to the people that are firing you because they need to help you. And so when I found out there was another job inside of Goldman Sachs, I called my old boss. I said, "Could you please help me get that job?" And he did. And so, again, good karma. Don't be that person that people will say, "Oh, I don't want to deal with that person," or "That person's taking energy away from me." Try to handle things with a sense of humor and some level of levity. Second big lesson
Mhm.
is you got to live passionately. And so I was at the new job, did well at it, but I always wanted to have my own business. And so I wrote down in my diary, if I could pay off my school debt, once I do that, I'm going to go leave and start my own business. And so I paid that off in May of 1996. And I left Goldman Sachs in November of 1996 to start my first firm. And I'm very happy I did that. It was lots of trials and tribulations. I've made good money. Some people in the industry have made more money than me. Some people have made less money than me. But I have been allowed to be me. And I think that's the most important thing that I can leave with your viewers and listeners. You've got to be you. Don't compare yourself to anybody else. Don't try to be somebody that you're not. But think about the destiny that you've been given in this life. Think about your gifts. Think about your own special and unique talent. Think about what you really like and just do the best that you possibly can in that sort of a situation.
So basically in 1996, like, you launch Oscar Capital Management with your colleague Andrew Borges, right? That's
Andrew Bozart. Yep.
for
Great
that.
guy. Yep.
So technically it took you what about 7 years to like to learn to build up, the muscles and connections, like to then,
Yeah, pay off the school debt. Yes, great learning experience, built a client base, learned a lot. It was a bull market. I think it was a direct beneficiary of a bull market. There was a expression on Wall Street, which is still true today. Don't confuse brains with the bull market. And so we were riding high in the bull market, doing quite well. And we rolled that business and that goodwill with our clients into our own business. And also, but we had a great relationship with Goldman. We left on good footing. We left with the right rapprochement with the firm. And to this day, I still have a good. I'm at Goldman Sachs 27 years, but I still have a very good relationship with that firm, and I have a lot of fondness for that firm.
So one of the pivotal, like I would say, like moments, the fact that you maintain those relationships, right? And then
Mhm.
like even
Very important.
it converted them into the future, like, like of anything that
Mhm.
you did, like, that is very, not to burn bridges, right?
Yes, very important.
Now, if you were to be completely transparent in terms of like what happened like 2020, 2001, when basically you sold the company to Neuberger Berman, right? And
Mhm.
they sold it to Lehman Brothers, and there was even like a short moment in your career where you served as a managing director, like, on the investment management division. Can you elaborate a
Yeah,
little?
think I think listen, here's two things I would say about that. I think you can look through your life. Obviously, with hindsight, you say, geez, I wish I had gone left or as opposed to right, or right as opposed to left. But I think the beauty of life is to accept your decision making. So, you can't walk around with a millstone of regret on your neck. I don't wake up in the morning and say, oh, I got fired from the White House 7 years ago. Let me kick myself in the pants today. I don't do that. I probably should have never sold that business. And when hindsight being what it
Mhm.
was, we had a great business. We could have grown the business considerably. And there was no really need to sell the business. I guess there was some short termism involved. It was a lot of money at that time. We sold the business for 125 million US dollars, a lot of money at that time. We split it among four partners. We all had some level of requisite wealth that we were very proud of. And I was a young man at that time. I was 37 years old. So that was great for me. Paid my taxes. I paid off my mortgage. I think I maybe have renovated my house or something like that, and put the rest of the money in the bank. But was it or was it not the right decision? I don't know, because my time at Neuberger Berman and my time at Lehman Brothers, which was fun, was very corporate, and it was very political, and it was very similar to working at a large institutional investment bank. And so that's great for certain people. And if you have that type of personality, you should do that. I don't judge people that work at those places. If anything, they make a lot of money, they have very successful careers. God bless them. But it wasn't great for me, because I have a certain type of personality. I'm opinionated. Some can call me a loudmouth. Some can call me educational. It's one or the other. But I am an opinionated person. I'm a little out there, and I want to be out there. And so you can't be out there if you work for one of those organizations. And so I'm glad I left. I'm glad I sold the business in hindsight. It gave me a little bit of a breather, gave me a little bit of a cushion, but I was also not ready to stake my career inside of a place like Lehman Brothers. Not saying that Lehman Brothers isn't a great place. It actually was.
Mhm.
And I was disappointed to see them go out of business, because it was a great group of people there. And I don't think they made any bigger mistakes than any other investment bank. It was just a victim of that circumstance during that time in American financial history. But I left in '05. It went bankrupt in '08. And
Mhm.
here's a big thing you should consider, and this is something your viewers and listeners should consider. Imagine if I told you with a crystal ball that the lowly SkyBridge Capital, started by a few people in a small broom closet somewhere in Midtown Manhattan, uh, was going to outlast Lehman Brothers. Okay, no one would have believed that, but
Mhm.
that's what happened. Lehman Brothers, a storied investment bank, went out of business. We got hurt in the 2008 financial crisis, but we We ended up buying a asset from Citibank. We merged it into our business, and it made us. Uh, it was a good investment. It was a good outcome for all of us partners.
So, like in hindsight, like I think you can say fairly that like the exit and when you were 37 and gives you a very good timing to like restructure your life to think about what is important for you as you mentioned, right? And then you took two
Mhm.
years just to build this like vision, right? And that's where
Mhm.
you I would say like when you emanated this like in 2000 what that was 2005 when you actually started.
2005. Yeah, March 7th, 2005. SkyBridge, if the good Lord allows us to make it, and I'm knocking on wood, on March 7th, 2025, it'll be the 20th anniversary of SkyBridge.
Wow, impressive. And then later in 2009, you started Salt Conference, right?
We did.
Yes.
Now,
So,
that was also born from calamity. We were in the financial crisis. People were canceling their conferences. Our business was not doing well. And I thought, okay, maybe we can take advantage of this evacuation of conferences by starting a conference. And that worked out very well for us. That's a 15-year-old business, which has been a anchor for the firm.
yeah, I'm sure it is because there's amazing people who are like visiting it. And so can you help me also to understand the evolution of like, of SkyBridge Capital and Salt? Like, if we start with SkyBridge for like, just for the sake of, like the chronological order, right? What inspired you like, to I would say to build the investment thesis, and what is your actual investment thesis? Why do you think the firm is so successful and lasts so long?
Determination. We've had two or possibly even three near-death experiences. People who want to stay in business find ways to stay in business. If you're an entrepreneur, you have to be a human Swiss Army knife. You have to find the tools inside your personality or inside your team's toolbox to succeed, to adapt, pivot, and change. And we certainly needed to do that. And I certainly tried to do that over the last 20 years. And so we've had COVID was really bad for us. March of 2020, we lost a lot of money, pivoted the business into crypto, made us look like geniuses in 2021. We then looked like dunces in 2022. People wrote lots of nasty stories about us because I have a high profile. And of course, we're probably up 3x from when those negative stories were written. And you won't see any of the positive stories, which is fine because that's not what the media does. And we're sitting here in the middle of 2024 with probably the best 18 months of performance in the history of SkyBridge. So we've had to pivot, we've had to adjust, we have to make changes. It's very hard for human beings to make changes. We like things status quo. We are creatures of habit, but we fundamentally changed our business a few times since we started. And if you want to last in business, I think you have to do that.
Yeah. So, if I'm asking you what, like in terms of your investment strategy, so I know that like in the beginning it was purely traditional, right? You have
Mhm.
a lot of like risky alternative assets, and now you even like have a small chunk of like even digital assets, right? So, can you also help the viewers to understand like what was the progression, right? How did you pick like the assets like or the investment opportunities, and how did you reach this level that now you're like I would say one of the main like proponents of crypto, like I wouldn't say like in a national-wide terms, but like generally as an asset class, right?
So here's what I would say to you, that it was a bold decision for us. I don't want to understate it because I'm an older guy. I have had success in traditional finance. I'm a 60-year-old white male. Okay, I guess that's like a bad thing to be now in our society, but that's what I am. And 60-year-old white men, they don't do crypto. Why would they need to do crypto? I've already made decent money. Why would I do crypto? And God forbid crypto doesn't work out. I embarrass myself, and then people write bad stories about me, right? And so, but I did it because I thought it was technically transformative. And I saw that if I've got this right, this is a 10x, possibly a 20x situation for
Mhm.
myself, my family, and my clients. And so we have about a third of our assets in crypto. And if we're right, this will be the home run of my investment career. And I think we've been rewarded thus far in the transaction, but it required a lot of hand wringing, crocodile skin. You have to be super tough. You have to have really tough skin, Constantine. So, I mean, those are the answers. And here's the thing, again, and try because I've listened to a few of your podcasts. I want to come up with something holistic. I want to come up with something sound for you. What I would say to you is when you are the most fearful,
Mm.
that may be where the best opportunity is. And so if you've done your research, you've done your homework, and you are fearful, and other people are telling you, oh, yeah, don't invest in Google, that's garbage, or Facebook is a fad, or Amazon's just a bookseller. Uh, maybe if you go against the grain, that's where the real money's made.
I completely agree with you. And I'm just curious, maybe you can give a tips like to some of the firms that are, let's imagine they're in a similar situation as yourself. They have partners who are like, like just different generation. It's one partner is excited about, crypto and let's say three others who are in investment committee, they're really not. So what would you advise like how to approach, like to convince others like to participate maybe like in 1 to 5%, like, like to start like at least like testing the waters.
Yeah. So I would say this to you that um, uh, get off zero. What do I mean by that? If you own zero Bitcoin, let's start with Bitcoin as an example. If you own zero Bitcoin, get off zero. Buy a half a Bitcoin, buy $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, get yourself off zero because you can invest and then you can investigate and you can do more research. But I can tell you right now, if you don't get off zero, what ends up happening is you won't really ever have the incentive to really understand what's going on. So I would just say get off zero. So to me, yeah, 1 to 5% makes sense. Now, you didn't ask me this question, but I'm going to answer it anyway. How much of my money is in Bitcoin? Well, I've got about 35% of my net worth in Bitcoin.
Wow.
And that's not because I started with that. It's because I had 6, 7% in Bitcoin and it's exploded to that level.
Got
And I'm not selling it. So, if Bitcoin goes down, then you'll invite me on your podcast. I'll say I have 10% of my net worth in Bitcoin. Or if Bitcoin goes up, I could say to you, well, I got 60% of my net worth in Bitcoin.
it.
It's not an asset that I'm prepared to sell. I'm too close to Michael Saylor to ever sell my Bitcoin.
I love the reference. Yeah, so he was also in my podcast. So yeah, look. So in your like in your purview, in your perspective, like what are one of the most significant trends you're seeing, like both in financial markets and in like crypto and blockchain technology?
I think the biggest thing are these ETFs. We're going to have a Ethereum ETF. We've had a beginning of the year with $70+ billion in Bitcoin ETFs now in the United States. I think we're going to have a huge explosion in Ethereum growth, allocation into Ethereum. I think you're going to eventually see a Solana ETF. And so you could be sitting here with Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana as parts of your tactical asset allocation program. And so that to me is the biggest, that to me is the most exciting. And so if you were asking me, say, hey, Anthony, what is an actionable event for my viewers and listeners right now? What would you do? Summer 2024, I would buy Bitcoin, Solana, and Ethereum. And you can wait for them to become ETFs, or you can buy them now. But I would certainly buy Bitcoin and the Ethereum ETF when it's launched.
Yeah, I mean, so VanEck just filed the first spot Solana ETFs. We see BlackRock actually acquires index and firm Preqin, like to potentially launch another Solana ETF. So, and I'm sure all the big guys who already launched the ETFs of the Bitcoin and Ethereum, I mean, you're absolutely correct. They will probably go after Solana. What do you think will be the next crypto asset, like maybe Ripple or others, like who would be contenders to have an ETF?
It's a good question, and I wish I could answer that question. Because I am somebody that believes that they all technically qualify.
Hmm.
The SEC has been reluctant to approve these things, and they reluctantly approved the Bitcoin. It sort of got forced into the Ethereum. They've suggested that Solana is a security in the Coinbase lawsuit,
Hmm.
but it has the same technical properties just about as Ethereum. So they probably have to walk that back now, you
Yeah.
know? So I don't know. It's a really good question. I don't know. But for me, I'll just tell you publicly, I own Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. I own Algorand. I own a small token called Vulcan Forge, which is a gaming token. I own Casper, which is sort of an enterprise software token, which I think could be really, really a big home run as they start to scale.
Mhm.
And those are my big assets. I own a little bit of this ton. I don't know if you follow it closely, but it's the Telegram network token, and I own that as well.
Yeah, Ton is becoming
Yeah.
after
So
Terra
those are mine.
released a research paper about Ton. I think it's becoming really huge, and overall, like I think it has a huge potential because Telegram is a native, one of the biggest messengers, and has a huge network effect, and is growing, and it's very native to everyone who is digital, like asset
Hmm.
evangelist. So,
Hmm.
yeah, also a big believer it's going to grow up. Do you invest also in some equity deals and that are like blockchain related companies?
Um, yeah, I mean, I have. I'm not going to say that I haven't. I would say that the ones that I like are, um, mm, you ever hear of Lockchain?
No.
Okay, so if you go to lockchain.io, you can get the description of the company. And Lockchain is a phenomenal company, and it's a security-based company. So I have a big investment in that personally.
Hmm.
So not a lot. I own. Remember, I have publicly traded assets in something called CRPT, which is the First Trust SkyBridge Digital Economy Fund. And I own things like Coinbase, and I own things like MicroStrategy and PayPal and other, Marathon Digital, things like that that I believe are going to be great performers.
And maybe you can explain a little bit, like, for the viewers who are not familiar with the First Trust Hybrid Crypto Industry and Digital Economy ETF, right? CRPT. How does it work? Like, and what's like.
Yeah, yeah. So it's an actively managed ETF. We list all of our holdings. If you go to Google and you punch up CRPT
Mhm.
and SkyBridge, the quote will come up, and then it'll also list the holdings. If you press for the detail, it'll give you a sense for everything that we own in that asset class, and it's uh, it's tied to. It's exactly what you're asking. Do I own any of the infrastructure or the things around the crypto? Privately, I own this thing called Lockchain, but publicly, I own all of those companies.
Got it. So I've seen the top 10 holdings: MicroStrategy, Coinbase, Galaxy
See, there you go.
Digital.
You look at how versatile you are, right? You're multitasking.
Well, listen, we have to hustle. I'm learning from the
Gotta hustle. You
best.
gotta hustle. I mean, that is the number one thing. You gotta hustle.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah, that's impressive. So yeah, so a lot of like publicly traded like companies that are like directly 100% focused on crypto, and few other, like I would say, like for diversification, I guess, right? Few other like services. Um, so if I were to ask you, where do you see your future, your personal future, and the future of
Yeah.
SkyBridge
Good
Capital?
question. No, that's a good question. I love what I do, and so knock on wood. I have a podcast. I have a political podcast with a woman called Katty Kay. That's called The Rest is Politics US. It's produced by Goalhanger, which is one of the leading podcast
Mhm.
companies in the United Kingdom, and we're doing reasonably to quite well here in the United States. I have a podcast I do myself where I interview authors because I'm a little bit of a bookworm, and so I like doing that. I do a ton of public speeches all over the world. I'll be in Australia for Labor Day weekend, and I've been throughout Europe. I was speaking in Athens 2 weeks ago at the Athens Riviera Summit, Economic Summit.
Mhm.
And so for me, I love the process of educating, entertaining, speaking to people, talking about SkyBridge. We're raising money now for various projects inside of SkyBridge. So I would like to do this for another 10 or 15 years, God willing. If I stay healthy and vibrant, I'd like to continue to do this. I know it's hard for us to admit our mortality. I know it's hard for us to admit that we get older. Okay. And I'm not ready to or willing to admit that, but I know that Mother Nature is coming for me like she comes for everybody. And so at some point, I'll probably have to hang up my spikes or my cleats, but not yet. I want to continue to do this. I don't have any political ambitions. I don't see myself running for political office. As I've told people, I want to stay married. I'm running probably perhaps constant for reelection in my marriage. I'm just trying to stay married. I think that's my goal right now.
I think that's an amazing endeavor, right? I mean, but since you opened a little bit this can of worms, like I was trying to avoid it, but like now I have to ask you about like, you were basically like, the White House communication director, not for long, right? And I know even though you wrote a book about it, which, I've read, you actually signed it for me. I remember like you shared it with
Mhm.
Miami.
Mhm.
So, um, if you can share a little bit like one of the other like insights from this experience, and generally I know you did a lot of fundraisers for both parties, by the way, Democratic and Republican. So I'm curious to hear your outlook and what you've learned from this experience.
Well, if you're going to go into politics, okay, learning lesson number one, if you're going to go into politics, expect to get your face mauled. Okay. It's like if you play soccer and you head the ball, or you play football, you head the ball, you're going to get a concussion. You
Hmm.
play National League football with a quarterback, you're catching a pass from the quarterback, you're going to get a concussion. You can't go into American politics at the presidential level and not get beaten up. And so you have
Hmm.
to be a big boy about that. So that's lesson number one. Number two, I would say that our country, the United States, and it may be true in Europe, but I can really just speak specifically about the US because I live here. Our country's in a little bit of pain right now. We have a great polarity. We have a tribal divide going on. We have a culture war going on in the country. We also have people that feel left out of the system. And so I grew up in an aspirational blue collar family, but 35 years later, those very same families are economically desperational as opposed to aspirational. I think that's painful. And so we need political leadership in the country that can sort of reset and create an American renewal and try to get people to embrace all of the great things about America and see if we can bring them back into the fold. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to do that over time. But our current crop of politicians, they don't seem that focused on that. They're like bashing each other, and they like, I don't know. And they're too old, by the way. I mean, if we're talking
Yeah.
about the presidential candidates, they're just too old. They shouldn't be that old running for office. And these people don't want to leave the stage for whatever reason. They're just too old. And we're going to see the ramifications of that for many years. We'll eventually get to the right leadership again because this is a great country. We have very, very smart people. And so long term, I think we'll be okay, but it's not something I'm in love with right now.
Yeah, I would agree, and it looks like this current election cycle, there's not a lot of options to even like get rid of this like old school like legacy like and people who are like yes that probably should just retire and like let the new blood come in. But let's be positive, right? If you were to dream a little bit like for the next in the election cycle. Do you see some candidates like, that you personally like, respect? I wouldn't say supportive in the word, but you respect and you think that they can be true leaders that can change America?
I don't see any on the horizon right at this moment. It's unfortunate for me to say this to you. I don't think we have that leadership right now.
Yeah.
And so, maybe someone will surprise us, maybe someone that we think doesn't have that capability rises in that position and he or she surprises us. But the people that are leading our country right now, they seem very, very focused on themselves. And they've been very so focused on securing personal power for themselves as opposed to righting the ills or righting the wrongs of the country. And so I don't see it right now. Now that, look, things change quickly. We could see it, Barack Obama came out on the scene in 2008. People was like, whoa, but he was there in 2004. He gave a great speech at John Kerry's convention. And he was running for the Senate in Illinois. And of course, he won that race. And then he went on to successfully serve for 2 terms as president. He was a newer, fresher face of leadership.
Mhm.
There are things he did well, there are things he didn't do well. He was certainly a competent president. I'm not saying that he wasn't, but I think that you know, obviously I've stated my opinions of the various things that have gone on here. We're spending way too much money as a society. You can't borrow 6 to 7% of your GDP every year forever. You can't do that. It's just you'll set yourself up for a colossal debt crisis. You can ask countries like Greece, Argentina, Mexico. Over the years, you got to be very, very careful with your borrowings.
So with this said, like what do you think is going to happen with US, like given the situation that we are in a huge, debt, like and then now we have emerging markets like, we have China, we have India who are like already like, booming and this is not even like their peak, right? So we might see more other countries that is going to come to arena. So do you think US like will still maintain the leadership in the global arena?
I do. I do. I think even right now, despite the sloppiness of what's going on in the United States and around the world, the dollar is very strong. U.S. has still a very robust economy. If it's not the largest economy in the world, it's tied for or close to being tied for the largest. I'm going to say something to you that Lee Kuan Yew, the leader, the father of Singapore, once said
Hmm.
when he was asked about the United States. He said, well, the United States can draw from every other place in the world. They can draw from all the other continents. And America is based on an idea. So just you can come in, you can become Greek American, Italian American, Chinese American, Japanese American. You can become American and assimilate into this culture. It's hard to do that in other countries. Germans don't fly to Japan and become German Japanese. And Japanese people don't fly to Germany and become Japanese German. But you can become a German American or a Japanese American. And so we can draw upon the rest of the world, these great intellectual resources. And it's still a very free, very meritocratic country. And I would say that it's a good country. Yes, we do stupid things. We've been in wars that we shouldn't have been in. We've had some bad policy snafus over the years. I'm not saying it's a perfect country, but has been generally a force for good in the world. It has been a force for peace and greater global stability. And I think we can get there again. I think it's just going to take some time. And we're talking about businesses. And so success in business requires adaptation. Well, so does that in government.
Yeah.
The government needs to retool and readapt itself to the needs of its people in the society today. And I think it will do that because it's frankly always done that. It hasn't done that perfectly, and there's always been some strife and some trials and tribulations, but it does do that.
Yeah. 100%. I agree with you. We should stay positive, and I think we should be the first who will draw this change and who will be examples. Like, we should lead by example, and then like Italian Americans, Ukrainian Americans, everyone are welcome, right? And like it's truly an amazing social experiment what the United States of America has built, and I think it will still have the potential to grow. I want to also like I know that you're writing like you wrote a lot of books, obviously, like and one of them, by the way, one of the first book that I read of yours, so was like this Goodbye Gordon Gekko, and I know this is like the Wall Street overall, the Wall Street as a movie was
Hmm.
very dear and near, like inspiration for you.
Yes.
Is it true that like you actually paid $100,000 to have SkyBridge logo in the film Wall Street? Money
Well,
never.
they always said that, but that wasn't true.
It was.
I know because I was interviewed by the institutional investor guy,
Mhm.
and he wrote an article about me. It was a negative article, by the way, because they always do that. But he asked me what it would it cost to have your name in the movie. I said, well, I read the script and I did a lot of work for the movie,
Mhm.
but they told me in lieu of paying $100,000, all the work I did on the movie, they put my logo and my name in the movie. That's all.
Got it.
But it was I never was able. This is the thing, a lie gets out the door, travels 7.5 times around the world before the truth can get its sneakers on. It's just one of those things. Somebody wrote that. That's it. Somebody also said that I supported Hillary Clinton in her presidential campaign,
Yes.
and that is true. But it was because I was at that time politically agnostic. One of my clients asked me for a check for her, so I gave him the check. I wasn't sitting there beating the drums for her. I don't dislike her, but I'm a lifelong Republican, so I was more tilted towards the Republicans. So
Mhm.
we sometimes get people to write things about us that are not 100% true, but they're fitting the narrative that they want to shape about us, which is something I would say to people. Don't be discouraged by that. And what other people think about you is none of your business, but you should do podcasts like this. You
Mhm.
should meet people. You should talk to people. I sometimes come off a podium and say, oh, wow, you're totally different from what I thought you were. You're not that guy that I read about. I said, well, of course I'm not that guy. That's a narrative that somebody's trying to create, some kind of caricature or cartoon character. It really doesn't exist. They're doing that to serve their needs and to try to create something that people are going to read. That happens a lot to people, and I find that I never judge anybody until I meet them face to face. I never judge them off their press clippings.
Oh yeah, 100%. But at the same time, it's funny that, and it's sad at the same time where like, even the black PR, like it sometimes like people prefer that, like because it still draws attention to personality, right? So a lot of the firms created artificially like, some news about them so that people start asking questions, right? So and that's why like, probably like there's a lot of yellow like press that is creating this like misinformation, which is sad. That's why I'm happy that like you debunk some myth. Like jumping into your like I would say work-life balance, right? So I know you're like extremely busy person and you love to travel. I mean, you have family, you have kids. I mean, how do you maintain this balance? And what are some of your like favorite like ways to unwind and recharge?
Well, I'm talking to you right now from my summer home. And so I'm supposed to be off work this week, but I had to move this podcast a few times. And so I didn't want to blow you off. But other than this podcast, I'm going to be home, taking in a little sun, swimming in my pool, and relaxing and reading. I'm not a golfer. I don't play tennis. I do hit the gym in the morning regularly. So I try to get some good exercise in. But I am a car enthusiast. And
Mm.
so I own a Lamborghini Huracan because I'm an Italian nouveau riche person from Long Island. So of course I own a Lamborghini Huracan. I'll be cruising around in it with the top down as a form of recreation and relaxation. And so for some people that's gaudy and some people that's ostentatious, but to me it's just me enjoying my life. And so I'm not really that high maintenance on the weekends. My attitude is I work very hard. That's something I'm very passionate about and I love. But I like to unplug and spend time with my kids and my family. I still have some young kids at home. I have some older kids. And so I am playing a lot of basketball on the weekend on two very sore knees.
Nice. So I know you're demanding in your professional life, right? So are you the same at home or you're different at home?
I let my wife run things at home, really. It probably sounds very traditional, but my wife basically, runs the house and keeps everything going. And I basically take orders from her. I better be in ship shape or maybe she's going to ship me out. But, my thing is once I'm home, I sort of try to leave people alone. Listen, if you worked at Skybridge and, some people have worked at Skybridge and hated it for whatever reasons, but I'm pretty freewheeling at Skybridge. So I try to empower people at Skybridge and I try to delegate to them and give them a lot of autonomy to succeed and to think and be like entrepreneurs. Uh, I don't know. That's worked for Skybridge. I'm not saying that
Mhm.
it's a perfect solution or anything like that. There's some people that didn't really have left the firm and complained about that, didn't really like it. Um, but those are usually people that I'm hiring from big corporations. If I'm hiring people that are entrepreneurial, and they're a little bit more free thinking, and they have that, what do I call it, commercial weirdness. I'm like commercially weird. You may not hear from me for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden I've got 17 ideas and I'm bristling with them, and I'm running around the world trying to make all of them happen at once. And so that's commercial weirdness. And Steve Jobs, who was incredibly successful, amazing innovator, just think of what Apple Computer actually became and is still becoming. He used to call it a reality distortion field.
Hmm.
So if somebody tells me, oh, well, that can't be done, or that's that, talking about, well, we gotta figure it out. What do you mean it can't be done? Of course we can do that. And I'm not talking about like raising people from the dead or things like that. I'm just talking about we can execute this plan. Let's go.
Mhm. So you're a visionary and you're trying to lead by example and set up like some of the sometimes very ambitious goals, right? Which help the team to kind of accumulate this
No
potential
question.
and
No question.
therefore like get there by all means. So, and here it comes like this is a perfect like actually it's a transition to my question about your goals, right? Because I know that you're very ambitious and you're still like you would go like until you physically able like and mentally capable to work,
Yes,
you will do.
100%.
I know that. So
Yeah, I
what?
want to do. I want to do that because I like it.
And that's perfectly seen, right? So you're very passionate about it, and people see this like light in your eyes, like especially in the conferences. So what are some of your personal goals in the coming like, I don't know, like 3 to 5 years? Like, do you have some ambitious goals that you set up for yourself and for the firm?
I'm hesitating because I don't want to be too audacious. I mean, we've got about 4 billion under management.
Mhm.
Would I like to see the firm have 10 billion? Yes. Could I get there in the next 6 or 7 years? I believe so.
And,
You say,
and
well,
your
why do you need more money, Anthony? Right? Why do you need more money? It's not that. It's just I think it's fun. Also, what am I going to do with the money? I'm going to give some of it to my kids. I'm going to give the rest of it away to charities. I'm not looking to create some kind of egocentric empire or anything like that. This is my company, and my entrepreneurship is an artistic expression. Some people are capitalists. I see myself as a capital artist. I'm doing things in an unorthodox way,
Mhm.
and non-traditional, but it makes me feel good, you know. And so I want to continue to do that. Let's see what happens. If I end up with 10 billion under management and end up retiring or turning the company over to a younger group of people and doing some travel or teaching, that would be great. I mean, I guess, I've read enough Marcus Aurelius to know that I'm quite impermanent, and I don't want to take myself that seriously. And I'm not going to be one of these people that holds on for dear life way longer than I should. I mean, look at these politicians. These politicians, I'm not going to speak about any of them specifically, but let me just say this. Let me stipulate this. Any politician over the age of 75 should be out of their jobs. Sorry, guys. Time to move on. Find something else. There's a
Yeah.
lot of interesting things to do in life. Just go and do those, you know?
Yeah, I honestly would agree with you, like especially when, yeah, you have sometimes very clear physical, like I would say, deficiencies and like,
Of course.
and other things. But
Crazy.
if we're focusing on the positive side, like I know that you read a lot, as you mentioned, right? So I'm sure you read a lot of like philosophy books, like something that is actually meaningful. And here is the question, which I usually end up well, the podcast, and I love this question because I never like notify my guests that I will ask it, like, but that's why the answer will be very genuine. The question is like, Anthony, what is a meaning of life to you?
Well, I know this is overly simplistic, but I think Paul, in his epistles, in his letters, St. Paul, who was a brilliant relationship expert, he went out and proselytized the teachings of Jesus. And of course, I'm a Christian and a practicing Roman Catholic, but what Paul said, the greatest among all of the things that we think about is love. And so to me, I feel like most of us, if not all of us, are genetically wired. We're pre-wired by nature to help each other. We're at our best when we're reaching out to help each other. Help a kid that isn't your kid. help a person that may be unhealthy that needs help to get to a doctor, help a family member where you may have more money than they do and you're helping them with a tuition or an education or a healthcare expense. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think we're at our best then. Jackie Robinson, the American sports hero, who was the first Black American athlete to play professional baseball, which was in April of 1947. He said, you're living at your highest sense of purpose when you're helping somebody else. I think that's ultimately, for me, the meaning of life. If you can take meaning life, meaning it is meaningful. And I'm not trying to say that it's meaningless, but I'm not suggesting that we're overly significant. Carl Sagan, he once wrote about the pale blue dot. When Voyager turned itself around to take a picture of the Earth when it was by Uranus as it was exiting the solar system, it was a little tiny dot on the speck of the aperture. And that's where all of our lives have been lived, and that's where all of our human history is. And it's important to us down here, no question. And I'm not trying to understate that, but it's not that overall significant. You should find comfort in that. Some people get depressed over that. They're like, oh my God, well, why? I find comfort in that. I find it a blessing that I'm here with you today, and I'm here with you to express myself and share my thoughts with other people. And I hope that the good Lord gives me a day again tomorrow to do this, And I think that's it. I think that's the meaning. I don't think it has to be more sophisticated than that.
I think it's extremely well said. Like the fact that we are here to help others, it's like that gives us meaning, I think, right? So,
No question.
yeah, I really appreciate your knowledge, your visionary approach to life, right?
Well,
And
thanks for bringing up my old books too. I appreciate that. I mean, I haven't, I wrote those books a while back. I'm glad that you read them, and I
yeah.
appreciate, it means a lot to me that you brought them up today. Thank you.
Of course, but you see, this is the point. Like, even if you impact at least one life, like I'm not even talking about like dozens, so like which you in your case probably impacted thousands, if not tens of thousands of lives, right? So uh,
Mhm.
directly and indirectly millions, because you're also a media personality, right? You're like very popular. By the way, one thing I haven't mentioned, like this is just for as a fun last point, like if you haven't seen an amazing advertising with Anthony, like Algorand advertising, I think he should he should get an Oscar for this ad.
Very funny, right?
It was
Yeah, you got a
incredible.
little, yeah,
I
you got a
was so
little humor,
surprised to see you. Honestly, it was
right?
like,
I just wanted to make a cameo there. Just let everybody know I still have a lot of Algorand. I still want the company to do well on that token. Thank
it-
you so much for spending time with me today. You're the best.
thank you so
And
much.
hopefully you'll give me a chance to come back on.
Of course, with
Happy
pleasure.
4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. Thank you.
Okay, now.
Bye bye.